On a cold, moonless night, the English Channel breathes like a sleeping giant. Beyond the dark horizon, hundreds of ships wait with their lights blacked out, and thousands of young men grip their gear in the dark, paratroopers fingering jump cords, sailors listening for the word to cast off, infantry hunched in canvas-sided landing craft, feeling every shudder of the sea. It is June 6th, 1944. It is D-Day. This is not the story of a single battle. It is the story of a decision made in war rooms, on wind-swept beaches, in crowded mess halls, and in French farmhouses with blackout curtains and whispered code words. It's the story of an invasion so audacious that if it failed, the war might stretch on for years or be lost. Tonight we will walk the sands of Normandy, slip behind enemy lines with the Airborne, ride the gray swells with the Armada, and stand in the shoes of those who planned it, defended against it, and lived through it. In late 1943, planners in London wrestled with geography, weather, and the raw arithmetic of lives. Where to strike? Pas-de-Calais was closest to England, but that also made it the most heavily defended. Normandy, its beaches named Utah, Omaha, Gold, Juno, and Sword, offered less obvious terrain and the element of surprise, but treacherous tides, high bluffs, and a maze of hedgerows just inland. At the top sat General Dwight D. Eisenhower, calm, approachable, and carrying a weight that would break most men. He would command the largest amphibious invasion in history. Around him gathered Bernard Montgomery, confident and insistent on a broad front. Omar Bradley, quiet and methodical. Admiral Bertram Ramsay, orchestrating the Armada. Air Chief Marshal Trafford Lee Mallory, cautious about airborne risks. And Walter Bedell Smith, Ike's iron-willed Chief of Staff. But the invasion wouldn't be measured only in ships and divisions. It would be measured in deception and nerve. Operation Bodyguard, an intricate tapestry of lies, aimed to convince the Germans the blow would fall at Calais. The Allies conjured a ghost army under George S. Patton, complete with inflatable tanks, fake radio chatter, wooden aircraft, and planted leaks. Double agents fed Berlin details that were true, except for the one thing that mattered most: the place and the time. Meanwhile, the French resistance sharpened knives you couldn't see. Rail lines were mapped for sabotage, bridges reconnoitered, safe houses prepared in back rooms of bakeries. In Britain's coastal towns, soldiers rehearsed embarkations so often that locals could recite the drill by heart. In secret factories, engineers birthed oddities: floating harbors called Mulberries, a pipeline named PLUTO to pump fuel under the channel, and amphibious tanks, duplex-drive Shermans with canvas screens that were supposed to swim ashore like mechanical turtles. Across the water, Field Marshal Rommel walked the length of France's shoreline, studying sand like a jeweler examines a diamond. He believed the Allies must be stopped on the beach. If they broke through, the Reich could not throw them back. So he seeded the tide line with steel hedgehogs and mines, strung the dunes with barbed wire, and positioned guns to rake the shallows. He called it the Atlantic Wall. But walls are only as strong as the men who man them, and as clear as the commands they receive. Deep in German headquarters, chains of authority knotted and frayed. Who could release the armored divisions? The answer was complicated, and the hours of the first day would make that complexity deadly. June arrived stormy and foul. In a small room with charts and teacups, meteorologists argued the sky. James Stagg, a cautious Scotsman, warned Eisenhower that the Channel was a beast today. Waves were high, winds were wrong. The airborne drops could scatter into disaster. Landing craft could capsize. The decision? Delay. But delay could not last. Each day the moon and tide slipped away from perfection. In the night of June 4th, Stagg returned with a sliver of hope, a gap in the weather, a brief window. If Ike pulled the trigger, men would go in under marginal skies, but skies that might hold. Eisenhower listened, stepped outside, walked alone, then came back. He looked his commanders in the eye. "Okay, let's go." Shortly after midnight, C-47 transports thundered over Normandy. Inside, paratroopers from the 101st and 82nd Airborne tightened straps, checked static lines, and stared at the red bulbs above the jump door. On the eastern flank, Britain's 6th Airborne prepared to snatch vital bridges over the Orne and the Caen Canal. The jump master shouted, "Stand up! Hook up!" Boots thudded, ropes snapped taut, and when the red light flipped to green, men spilled into the night. The plan called for precise landings. The reality was chaos. Low clouds, flak, missed landmarks, flooded fields. Sticks scattered across orchards and marshes. Some troopers drowned under heavy packs. Others landed on the wrong side of hedgerows or directly on German positions. And yet, through confusion, threads of the mission began to weave. Near Benneville, British glider troops crash-landed in the dark, so close to the objective that the first glider stopped within yards of the bridge. In minutes, they seized what would soon be named Pegasus Bridge, holding a door open for the eastern flank. To the west, American paratroopers blew causeways and secured beach exits the seaborne troops would need by dawn. Scattered squads found each other the way only veterans can, by sound, by instinct, by the shared magnet of the mission. Far from the beach, the resistance heard a coded phrase on the radio, snatches of poetry. Les sanglants de violon de l'automne. It was the signal to cut rails, fell trees, and tangled roads, to slow German counterattack before it began. As the paratroopers fought in the dark, a vast armada closed on the French coast. Over 5,000 ships and craft surged across the channel. Battleships older than some captains, brand new destroyers, minesweepers, transport ships packed with soldiers, and a teeming, bobbing flotilla of landing craft. On deck, men wrote last letters, some to mothers, some to girls back home, some to no one because they didn't dare imagine surviving. Chaplains offered quiet words. Officers paced, disguising fear as busyness. At H-hour minus minutes, the big guns opened. The horizon became a line of fire. Shells arced overhead to tear at fortifications that had been waiting all winter. Bombardment, though, did not erase every gun, and the sea had its own mind. Where the tide ran fast and sandbars hid, where cross-currents tugged at the helm, hinges hinged on small variables, on a helmsman's judgment, on a column of smoke, on whether a landmark looked like its photograph when viewed from the surf. The 5 beaches would each write their own story. Utah, the westernmost beach, saw strong currents push the first wave south of the intended sector, into a quieter stretch watched by fewer guns. A navigational error became a gift. General Teddy Roosevelt, Jr., 60-something and walking with a cane, landed with the first wave, surveyed the situation, and spoke the line that lives forever. "We'll start the war from right here." Omaha, the bloodiest beach, rose steeply from a killing ground of sand and shingle. Many of the amphibious DD tanks foundered in the rough water, leaving infantry without crucial armored support. As ramps dropped, machine guns raked the boats. Men stumbled forward, tripping over obstacles, bristling with mines. The water turned cold and red, and for hours, Omaha was a question with no answer. At Gold, British forces drove inland toward Bayou. A specialized zoo of armored vehicles, the funnies, made the difference. Flails that beat mines, bridges that unfolded like steel origami,
and AVREs that blasted pillboxes open. At Juno, Canadians fought through heavy surf and stubborn resistance. The defenses were strong, but their advance proved relentless, and by nightfall they would penetrate farther inland than any other beach. At Sword, the easternmost landing, and Spear Point toward Caen, troops linked with 6th Airborne at the bridges and pushed before German armor could counterattack from the south. Back at Pointe du Hoc, U.S. Rangers climbed cliffs under fire, daggers between teeth more by legend than reality, but grapples and sheer will were very real. At the top, they found the heavy guns gone, moved inland. They fanned out through the hedges and orchards, located the guns camouflaged and unwatched, and destroyed them with thermite. The cliff was not the victory, the guns were.